It's Halloween time again, or at least the month thereof, and as such, I'm going to be looking at horror movies again, this time a little more specifically and in-depthly. And welcome back to the heart of the stories we tell. I'm Rob the host, and this is another look deep into what makes a story, a theory on storytelling by a storyteller who believes that every story has merit. And tonight's episode is the story of Frankenstein even horror, or is it science fiction? And I know at first it sounds like an obvious answer, but there's more to unpack here than meets the eye. Before we get into it, though, I'm going to be doing an entire month of horror movie things, mostly monsters, so get ready for a happy, happy Halloween. Alright, so this is all about genre, and I covered what genre is before. I'm just going to go over a little bit of what was in that video, and basically say it's pretty much where we put things on the bookshelf. Now, George R. R. Martin goes out of his way to say that it's really just a skin-deep change, but I think that there's a little more involved in this question. And of course, if you haven't already, or if this is your first time at the channel, hit that subscribe button to hear all of my insane theories, Halloween or otherwise. And Lord knows that we have plenty of examples we can take from. Frankenstein's been retold over and over and over again. But for this, I want to specifically target in on the general things that appear in all of the stories. We're going to touch back on Mary Shelley a lot, but not just Mary Shelley. Let me just say, though, her book is not what most people think it was. It's all written from a point of view of the captain of a ship who's talking about events in the past through journal entries and diary entries, and of course letters to his sister. So using only that would run us smack dab into the unreliable narrator problem. So we're going to skip over doing specifics and say that this scene right here is the classic one we all think of.
Hey, look. It's moving. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's moving. It's alive. Oh, it's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
Now, monsters are a specific type of horror story. But again, these are things that are just staples of how we tell stories. We tell them in such a way as that, as I said last Halloween, we go ups and downs, chills and spills. But Frankenstein is so famous that he's become cartoon characters and even a cereal. At the end of the day, though, the themes remain the same. The theme of stealing knowledge from the gods, the ability to create life. In and of itself, that sounds pretty fantastical, and definitely pretty horrific in the case of Frankenstein, where it's a monster, who I'm going to refer to as Adam for this purpose. However, when you think about it, we see these stories all the time in modern stories, and they're not necessarily horror stories. We talk about cloning. I mean, we even have comedies about what you would do with your clone, and I don't want to even think about the ethical stuff. We have another way, not just flesh and blood. Computers, artificial intelligences. What's our responsibility when we make something that can think on its own? And if you think about it, that is what Frankenstein is all about. The monster aspect is there, of course, because it's a monster they create. But if you think about it, aren't the Terminators just monsters we created? Isn't every clone just something we created? And if we're telling a roller coaster sort of horror story, then it's all the same. The monster deep down is the one that created the life, the one that stole that knowledge from the gods, the ability to create. And again, we do this all the time. Mary Shelley could not possibly have written about an artificial intelligence or about a clone, because those concepts didn't even exist yet. Even the Hulk, to a certain extent, is a Frankenstein's monster. Science run amok. So what genre does it actually fit in? Let's go back to those Martin quotes. At the end of the day, the story is the same, the theme is the same, the concept is the same. Human beings in their hubris spend so much time thinking about whether they can do something that they don't consider the fact of whether they should do that something. By the way, if you didn't know, that's a Jurassic Park quote, which means that in and of itself is also a modern-day Promethean story, a Frankenstein story. But let me know down in the comment section below. What do you think? Do you think Frankenstein counts as horror? Or do you think it was sci-fi? Or, as I do, and my end thesis here is, science fiction, over the long haul, will become another genre, will become fantasy, or will become horror, because we can't possibly get everything right. And as such, sci-fi of today is not going to be sci-fi of tomorrow. Back to the Future had flying cars wrong, but didn't even predict the internet. And point blank, Star Trek, as much as it's supposed to take place in the far-flung future, the communicator they were using is barely any better than the phones we use now. And the phones we use now are full computers. Our iPads, I mean, everything. They not only got it wrong, but they got it wrong by leaps and bounds, because we made so much better than what they could have expected. Mary Shelley, on the other hand, just thought that she was using the best science of the day, and was doing things wrong. And don't forget to join me back here next week, when we're going to take another look at a type of monster. And next time I think we're going to keep with the sci-fi trend, because we're going to ask, why do we tell giant monster stories, like Godzilla and King Kong? But for now, if you enjoyed this content, hit that like button and share this video with a friend. It really helps the community out here. And of course, if you haven't already, click that subscribe button, because I'm trying to build a community, one where we can look at the whys and the hows of stories, and we can just do silly things sometimes, like wonder, is Frankenstein a horror story or a sci-fi one? For now, I hope you have a good night, and thank you for walking with me through the heart of the stories we tell.